Bungie, I think we need to talk. Final Shape's been out for a month, and you were hyping up big changes to Stasis, big reworks, and you've been talking about doing this for like almost a year at this point, and the time came, came in a couple waves. It's supposed to make Stasis as good as the other subclasses, but it didn't. All the buffs that happened for Stasis felt like they were only made to fill holes in Prismatic, and were just slapped on top of Stasis. They do not feel synergistic or like they are a part of our Stasis subclasses. I'm mainly looking at Frost Armor here. I'm not saying this is the only way to make Frost Armor, especially on Stasis, but like the main way you make it is through the harvest aspects, which are all copies of each other throughout all the classes. So this aspect is essentially a fragment. It just changes how you make the shards, but shards give you Frost Armor on all of them. Why not just make that a passive of Stasis subclasses? Collecting Stasis shards gives you Frost Armor. Because, like, I feel like you could bake that in as a passive Stasis subclass thing. Because, like, I know it's attached to Needlestorm, but Perch Threadlings on Broodweaver is great, and that should just be part of the subclass. And I think, a passive here and there on subclasses would be kind of cool, or at least for going into one element only instead of Prismatic. But also, at least these two are on the same aspect, but tying Frost Armor so heavily to Stasis shards kind of sucks, because there are also a lot of Stasis builds that don't utilize the harvest aspects. Like, usually when I'm on Stasis Warlock, I'm not using harvest. I'm using Bleak Watchers with Ice Flare Bolts to shut down entire rooms super fast. But, I have to use a harvest aspect if I want Frost Armor for the most part. Or completely change my build so I can have a constant overshield. And by constant overshield, I mean damage resistance that is lesser than both Void Overshield and Woven Mail, and maybe has half the time of Woven Mail, and oftentimes less than half the effectiveness. I know the timer is higher than Woven Mail's, but all you need to do to get Woven Mail is equip a fragment and pick up an orb. That's it. And it's like 65% in PvE. I know it doesn't protect your head, but in PvE, how many things aim for your head? Frost Armor is just not that good. In a Prismatic subclass, when you have Frost Armor, it feels fine, but on Stasis, where you already don't have buffs that really help you out, or a whole slew of debuffs on enemies that help you out, like Strand has Sever, which makes enemies deal less damage, and they have Woven Mail to make you take less damage. Pair that on Titan with Banner of War, or on Warlock with the Weave Walk, you don't die. Solar, you have Restoration, you have Cure. Void, you have Invisibility. They can't see you. You have Overshield. You take less damage. It's still Overshield does need a buff, in my opinion. Just want to state that. And then you have Devour, which heals you on kill and gives you grenade energy. Pair that with Suppression. You understand where I'm coming from. Yes, you can slow enemies. You can freeze them on Stasis. But, Frost Armor. It's, 35% at 5 stacks? I have to collect 5 shards, and I have to use one of my aspect slots to even get that as something I can do? If it's not clear, that's my main issue, is that shards and Frost Armor are innately tied together, yet neither one is something you can passively do plentifully. If you want either of those in your build, you have to have both of them in your build, and they have to be super prominent in your build. Your build has to be built around those two things. As you could probably tell, I'm not happy with the state of Stasis right now, but something I am happy about is Advanced GG, baby! I love Advanced GG. I've been using it for years. The focus line will, give you a nice boost of energy while keeping you focused on your tasks at hand. So if you're grinding Destiny 2, you may want to use some focus, help you out a little bit. If you're just trying to stay awake, you're doing homework, essays, stuff like that, energy, probably focus for that, I'm going to be real. But energy, it helps you out with that too. Hydration, if you just want to hydrate. Also, ice shaker cups, they keep your drink cold for a long time. I have one. I can promise you, it'll keep your stuff cold for over a day. At least in my experience, and I have like 3 of them. Anyways, if you want to check out Advanced GG, check out the link in my pinned comment or my description. Use code Spycer10 to check out. I get a kickback from that. I get money from that, but you get 10% off. So, now back to me complaining. Of course, other issues with Stasis. The lack of abilities. Like, Strand has this problem too, but Stasis has been out 4 years in November. Like, in November, Stasis will have been in the game for 4 years. Every subclass only has 1 super, 1 melee, the same 3 grenades across all 3. Like, if we had more abilities, that would help, especially damage focus abilities instead of just debuff focus abilities. Honestly, Shiver Strike should just deal more damage. Like, it's weak, right? I'm not crazy, right? Like, it is just functionally weak as a melee. It shatters things. Other than that, it doesn't do a whole lot. It's a little bit of movement, but in PvE, that thing does, like, no damage, and it just slows things. If it froze, and it had the cooldown it does, and it did the damage it did, that'd be one thing. But it slows, and it can shatter crystals. That's all it does. Sorry. Let's get into things I think would help Stasis be better. I think our mono damage type subclasses need to have, well, maybe not need, but, if they had passives, that'd be cool. Like, Strand Warlock kind of has Perch Threadlings as a passive because, only 1 super is available, and Needle Storm lets you do that, so Prismatic can do it too. But, like, what I'm about to say probably shouldn't even be, like, considered a passive. But, like, Shard Generation should just be part of Stasis, Maybe we could, just move it off the Harvest aspects and make it part of the subclass. Like, maybe you reduce the chances from 100 to, like, 75. But yeah, breaking crystals, killing Stasis debuffed enemies, freezing targets will make you shards if you're on that respective class. And picking up Stasis shards will give you frost armor if you are on a Stasis subclass. I think just deleting those aspects and replacing them is better. Now, what do we replace them with? I made a how do we make Stasis video, or how do we make Stasis better video a while back, and I said the same thing. Get rid of the harvest aspects. Make that just part of the subclass. And I think that is the best way to go with Stasis. If you want shards, you have to build into that shit. But the other subclasses don't have to do that with their pickups. At least as much. Fire sprites and the void ones, you kind of need to build into a little bit. Not much. It's just fragments. But Stasis, you have to center your subclass around it. Let's get rid of that, okay? Because shards, they're fine, but they're not that good, okay? They're not good enough to warrant that. So you could look back at that video and be like, okay, I like these alternate aspects more. But I'm going to shoot you a few more harvest aspect ideas to replace them. And with these, they don't even have to change the names. I want to keep them as harvest aspects. It's not going to focus on you creating the shards. It's going to focus on you harvesting the shards. What do you get out of collecting these shards? So, we're buffing shards with these. It's a passive, a support, and an active buff for these. Okay, so it's going to accomplish 3 things in each one. And going against that is my idea for the Titan Harvest aspect, because it does 4 things. If you remember back to last season, so season of the Wish, shattering crystals, there's an artifact mod that whenever you shattered crystals, it would send out little shards that would hit enemies and slow them. We're putting that on Titan. But in addition to that, your max stacks of frost armor are increased with this aspect. So shattering crystals technically does more damage and slows nearby targets. And you can have more stacks of frost armor. So breaking crystals is even better for you. And this will stack with Rhyme. So you get like I don't know, a max of 11 or 12, maybe even just 10. And it would get you way closer to that woven mail damage resistance in PvE. But also, every 5th shard you pick up gives nearby allies 1 stack of frost armor. So if you make like 10 shards, everyone around you has at least frost armor too, unless they're also on stasis and they're picking them up too, because they're not client side for some reason. But maybe that's a change they would have to make if they did all this. And with frost armor, when you have frost armor active, your melees are stasis charged, kind of like knockout makes your melees arc charged. And your melees deal bonus damage based on the number of stacks of frost armor you have. And when you're at higher levels of stacks, so let's say anything higher than 6, your melees and your melee final blows and your diamond lance impacts will create stasis crystals. So you can go ahead, punch that crystal, make a shard, get more frost armor. Yeah, right? It feeds into itself. You get more frost armor. You're in the fight more because you have more damage resistance. You're giving your allies frost armor to help lead them into the fight, okay? And whenever you shatter crystals, nearby enemies are slowed and take damage. It makes shards way better for Titan, if you choose to go that way. If you don't, you can make a build without focusing on shards. But you can still have them, so you can melee more. The only reason why Behemoth got an extra thing tacked on to its version of a new harvest aspect was because Behemoth is just kind of bad. It's not in a good spot right now. But moving on to the Revenant, picking up a Stasis shard slows nearby combatants. Probably 10 slow. So like if you pick up 5 Stasis shards and dodge, everything will be frozen if you're using that aspect. And also, picking up shards has a small, and I mean small, chance to create a heavy finder brick for allies. And also a small amount of special ammo for the person using the harvest aspect. So you're basically being a scout for your allies, finding useful things for them. And also, your finishers freeze nearby combatants, which is a debuff, you know? So you do a finisher, everything's frozen, you punch one of them, they all shatter, probably kill each other with the explosions, pick up the shards, and you keep going. Now, let's move on to Warlock. I'm a Warlock main, mostly. I actually do think Shadebinder is decent. Would I use it over Prismatic? No, because Bleak Watchers are better on Prismatic. So, on Warlock, picking up a Stasis Shard also grants energy to your least charged ability, not just your melee. Meaning, if you're using Bleak Watchers, you could get energy towards your grenades. If you're using Frost Pulse, you can get energy towards your class ability. And that'll just help you use those aspects more often. But in addition to that, collecting Stasis Shards partially refills the equipped weapons of you and nearby allies from reserves. I'm not talking like massive amounts. It'll probably be every like 3rd shard you pick up moves over like 10% of a magazine. So with rockets it'd be the whole thing, but with other weapons it'd be 10%. And when you have 5 or more stacks of frost armor, precision hits with stasis, special, and heavy weapons slow enemies. This will not work for explosive weapons. It's only precision hits. Not even fusion rifles will get this. This will help curb chill clip, except for on Fire and Forget, which has chill clip on it. But, you know, that could be really cool. A burst linear fusion rifle with chill clip that also slows on precision hits in addition to that. You know, that might be pretty cool. Basically, the idea is, you know, it felt like, you know, Ice Wizardy to, you know, be able to use your abilities more. And, you know, turning the ice into something more useful for your allies. Sounds like a wizardy thing to do by refilling everyone's ammo. And just applying more slow and freeze is Shadebinder's whole thing. Ice Wizard. You know? The Hunter, the reason why they got the finishers freeze combatants. You know, they're a ninja. And, you know, finding ammo felt more like a Revenant type of thing to do than a shade binder thing to do with it. That's why I did those two the way I did them. You could honestly interchange a lot of the stuff between them, and it's pretty similar. But I feel like Titan feels very Titan, and it would help Behemoth a ton, in my opinion. Anyways, that's about it for this video. Please let me know how you would fix Stasis. The number one answer is probably just make more abilities. You know, make grenades that just do damage. Make new melees that do different things. New supers. That's the number one thing. But I think Bungie also needs to take another look at the harvest aspects and just do something different because, you know, every class has one light-based subclass that has 4 aspects. All the strand subclasses have 4 aspects. Stasis has 4, but it's really like 3.5. It's a big fragment, is how I look at the harvest aspects, because they're all essentially the same thing, but just barely different. Look at harvest aspects again. Give Stasis a passive that gives it frost armor easily. Let us just make shards on Stasis. Don't make us jump through the hoops of having to turn our whole build into a Stasis shard build. I think it would be a lot better, you know? Anyways, yeah. Like, comment, subscribe, join if you want to. Tell me what you think they should do to Stasis to make it better. What your opinion of Stasis is. I think it's falling behind, and I think it has been for a while. It's the worst Titan subclass. Warlocks, Solar and Prismatic are better. Strand is probably better. So you're fighting with, it's probably better than Arc. Void, we can fight on that because Nova Bomb just got buffed, but I'd say it's probably better because it's CC abilities. Hunter, you can use pretty much anything and you're valid, so doesn't really matter there. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, join, all that stuff. I do have an advanced GG code. If you check out my referral link, should be in the pinned comment and or the description, and then at checkout use the code Spycer10. You'll get 10% off your order. So that also helps me, and that's really cool. So if you want advanced GG, whether it's the focus or the energy, I like both. Hydration's also good too. It's a gaming supplement company. You know, it'll help you stay awake, stay focused, you know, so you can grind Dual Destiny more to get those sweet exotic class items. Anyways, thank you for stopping by. See ya.